Hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'd really like to thank our partner, Chef, for being such a great partner and for offering to have Trace3 speak at this event here in San Francisco, Chef Automation Summit uh, 2017. The title of my talk is Unnatural DevOps Delivers Supernatural Results. The idea is that DevOps is really hard to obtain and even maintain once you have it, but it is worth it. And during this talk, I hope to share some experiences and ideas that will help you with your DevOps journey and indicate how Trace3 could help you too. So before I introduce myself and my employer, Trace3, I would like to get to know your DevOps situation a little better. Raise your hand if your company is interested in DevOps. Okay, pretty much everybody, not surprising since this is a DevOps event. Keep your hands up if your company is currently working on DevOps. Okay, most of you. Keep your hands up if your company has a clear understanding of at least one implementation of DevOps maturity level 1. The idea of the first way in Gene Kim's Phoenix project, continuous flow. How many of you have at least one implementation of the first way somewhere in your enterprise? Okay, about 25%. Interesting. That's actually less than I would have expected, but it looks like there's lots of opportunity for getting to know DevOps and how to do it better since you are interested in DevOps. Keep your hands up if your company has a clear understanding of at least one implementation of DevOps maturity level 2, the second way, continuous feedback, where you're using the results of the continuous flow proactively to inject feedback into the pipeline and make improvements. 2 people. Wow, okay. And finally, keep your hands up if your company has a clear understanding and at least one implementation of DevOps maturity level 3, the third way, continuous improvement, in which case it's a more advanced level where improvements are happening very frequently and consistently, making use of the first way and the second way facilities. None of you, okay. So for those with implementations at any maturity level, put your hands up if you're getting, the results that you expect out of DevOps or hope to get out of DevOps. Okay, 10% or so. Great, that gives me a better idea of, your situation. It's pretty clear that this talk is at least relevant. You have a strong interest in DevOps, and there's an interest to learn how to do it better, and there's room for improvement in most cases. So again, I appreciate having this opportunity to talk to you. Let me introduce myself a little better. My name is Mark Hornbeek, obviously. I've been working in the field around DevOps for 38 years, at least in engineering roles associated with DevOps, software process automation, test process automation, labs, and different forms of operations in manufacturing companies, as well as helping enterprises with their transformations. I was honored last year, kind of surprising to me, but as the outstanding IEEE engineer for Western USA. So that was quite an honor, and I'm still reeling from that. I'm a blogger on various DevOps topics at devops.com. I'm also a course author for the DevOps Institute. I wrote the DevOps Test Engineering course and the Continuous Delivery Architect course for the DevOps Institute. And I'm engaged with the DevOps Institute on helping deliver, for example, the DevOps Leadership course at Jenkins World recently. I have been involved over my career in something north of 40 plus DevOps transformations. I'm not going to say all of them achieved even the first way. Some of them did, but it does indicate that DevOps is not easy, and accomplishing even the first way is hard, and certainly getting to the third way is very hard, especially at the enterprise level, and I'll be talking about that further. Today, I'm a principal consultant at Trace3, and on the internet, you'll find that I call myself DevOps the Gray. It's kind of a funny way of saying I'm probably one of the oldest guys involved in DevOps, but also I hope to have some wisdom that I can impart as well. Trace3 is basically a pretty well respected value-added reseller. We have many partner products. We don't really have any products per se of our own. We resell other people's products, but in addition to that, we have some elite engineering that is able to deliver consulting services to integrate those products and to help customers with complex multi-dimensional problems in the IT space. So we have some very technical sales teams selling into Fortune 1000 clients, mostly IT side of Fortune 1000. In addition, we have some overlay teams for different areas of expertise. So, for example, data center migration, big data, data intelligence, security practices, and ITOA. Most recently, and most importantly for this conference, we have a DevOps practice of which I'm a part, and that little picture shows a lot of the practice members together at our Evolve conference in Las Vegas this past year. And you can see Gene Kim and John Willis, a couple of the luminaries of DevOps, were with us, and they did some keynote and breakout session presentations. We were honored to have them there, and certainly respect their work. And anyway, Trace3 has this idea of not just offering some kind of basic consulting service for DevOps, but we call ourselves the total DevOps, which is perhaps a little audacious, but you can see how we're able to do that. We're not just offering one dimension of DevOps, but the entire spectrum of things that are associated with DevOps, because we have these technical teams, practice teams, and security, data center, monitoring with ITOA, and automation with DevOps. So altogether, we're able to bring to bear an entire suite of capabilities to indeed support total DevOps and the total spectrum of things associated with DevOps. To learn more about Trace3, I encourage you to take a look at our link indicated there, trace3.com DevOps. So why do I say DevOps is not natural? Nature is interesting, but if you think about it, nature has this tendency to tend towards a natural state or an equilibrium relative to the ecosystem or environment that a thing lives in. That's absolutely different than DevOps. Sometimes nature can do that peacefully, like leaves falling from a tree in gravity, or it can be even violent, like volcanoes that are trying to reach a pressure equilibrium with their magma. DevOps, on the other hand, although it is trying to accomplish some goals, it's by definition disruptive, and it can be disruptive in a violent way sometimes by requiring a restructure of organizations, people, process, and tools, and technologies. It's often not that peaceful, in fact, but it definitely is not natural in the sense that it does require leadership and to drive change to accomplish DevOps. Rapid change towards a new level of performance is the whole point of DevOps. And of course, then the question is, well, if it's not natural, what do we need to do to accomplish it? The first thing, I'm an engineer at heart, and whenever I think of any problem, my first thought is, well, you first of all have to define what is the problem space, and that's the one thing that's kind of interesting about DevOps. As you probably know, there's not like a standard definition of DevOps to work from. I consulted this wizard, which is obviously me in a wizard outfit, which I did just for fun to underscore my DevOps the Gray moniker. But basically, I did come up with this definition and threw it out there on my LinkedIn page and got a lot of responses. I think over 20,000 people said they liked it. So I'm going with this definition, at least for the context of this presentation. So DevOps is the application of the principles of the three ways that Gene Kim in his Phoenix project talked about. In other words, continuous flow, feedback, and continuous improvement. And that's applied to three dimensions: people, process, and technology. And why would you do it? Well, it's for increasing agility, stability, security, efficiency, quality, and satisfaction. That's a mouthful, but I think that captures the idea of a definition that should answer the questions of, how, what, and why. The definition is what I'll use for the rest of this talk, and I hope that you're able to accept it, at least to help understand that DevOps does have major benefits, not just one-dimensional, and it does affect, multiple dimensions of people, process, and technology. And it does that by applying the manufacturing methods developed through Toyota production systems and lean manufacturing applied to software. And that's really where those 3 ways came from. Okay, so what are these so-called supernatural benefits? Agility, stability, efficiency, quality, security, and satisfaction. Taken individually, DevOps can accomplish, multiple times improvement in any one of those dimensions, and that's been reported. The best in class organizations are reporting, multi-X benefits in every one of those categories, and that's pretty remarkable. But what's even more remarkable is that it can accomplish them all together. Usually, you can accomplish agility, getting things through the pipeline faster, but perhaps at the expense of stability or at the expense of efficiency. People can throw more resources at something, or put up with more problems, but speed it up. And unfortunately, a lot of the lower performing companies are in fact doing that. But the idea is that when done properly, DevOps actually does something almost supernatural in the software development world. It actually can improve agility, stability, efficiency, quality, security, and satisfaction all together when done accordingly. So that's pretty interesting and perhaps even unexpected. And it's not something that you can do easily, but it clearly is valuable, and that's what makes it worth it despite the challenges. What are those challenges? Well, I have a diagram here that's perhaps a little, scary. You can imagine juggling a single chainsaw. Juggling 5 is certainly more challenging, and perhaps this is, a little outrageous way of saying that something's very challenging. But if you think about DevOps, there are really 9 disciplines associated with getting DevOps right, even the first level of continuous flow. Those 9, what are they? That's like transformation of leadership, the culture to make it collaborative and keep it collaborative, design practices for different applications, whether that be microservices or 3-tier apps or whatever your app is, but making them ready for DevOps, continuous integration practices, continuous testing, continuous monitoring, elastic infrastructure such as cloud, or virtual or containerized infrastructures, continuous delivery and deployment, and finally security. So there's like 9 disciplines in and of themselves. There are a lot of challenges there to get right. To do DevOps properly, you really need to keep all 9 in balance. Otherwise, you're going to have the problem of making an improvement in one area, but causing a problem in another area. But that's not all, right? We also have these 3 dimensions: people, process, and technology. So all 9 of those things, you have to address people aspects, process aspects, and technology aspects of those different disciplines. So if you cross product 9 with 3, there's 27 things that you need to keep balanced and evolve proactively. It's not easy. Nobody said it was easy, but remember the last slide. It is worth it. You get some supernatural results when you accomplish it. It can't be done all at once, and it can't be done just by buying a tool or a particular person, a DevOps guy. It really requires an organizational commitment and approach and strategic thinking and strategic planning to accomplish that over time and keep all of the 27 things in balance as you move forward. And that's indeed the kind of things that Trace3 is involved in, as we offer a total DevOps practice to help you understand, where are you against all those different dimensions and disciplines, and then set out a roadmap to accomplish that. Okay, I think at this point it's worth going back to kind of the roots of DevOps to think about it, right? How can you possibly do this? So there are some interesting words that were, associated with the Toyota production system that underscore and underlie the manufacturing and lean principles that eventually were in fact applied to DevOps. I think many of you have heard the word Kaizen. Put up your hand if you've heard the word Kaizen. Most of you, and you know what that is. It's basically continuous improvement within an organization, but kind of driven from the top down to emphasize the best practices and to reward that, and to try to make the best, the best practices come to light. Who, hands up if your organization actually practices Kaizen? All right, many of you. So hands up if you've heard of Yokoten. None of you. Okay, cool. I'm not surprised, but it's interesting because Yokoten is also very important to implementing DevOps, especially at the enterprise level. Yokoten is another word associated with lean manufacturing. It's really the process of sharing learning laterally across an organization. So once you have a Kaizen, some best practice, Yokoten involves copying and improving the Kaizen ideas that have been proven to work. It's the equivalent of horizontal deployment or sideways expansion of some good ideas. And at the enterprise level, you can see that Yokoten is as important as Kaizen. So I encourage you to think about Yokoten, and I'll be using that word in the rest of my presentation here and there because I think it relates to the concept of how in the world can you, balance 27 things to get DevOps right. Just as an interesting point, by the way, we don't have time for it in this talk, but there's another interesting Japanese word. Who's heard of Jidoka? Jidoka, J-I-D-O-K-A. Interesting. Nobody. So this is actually quite relevant for this conference, but it stands for, well, let me leave that with you as a homework assignment, just for fun. Jidoka. Anyway, so the point is, how can these principles be translated to meet the challenges of DevOps? In fact, there's simply not enough time to do this for all 27 challenges, but I'll focus the rest of the talk on the 3 dimensions of people, process, and technology, and I'll make the, perhaps exaggerated claim that the solutions presented can be translated to each of the 9 disciplines. They can be. I'm not going to have time to do that, but they can be. I'll assure you that. Okay, so people, right? People is the first dimension. Breaking down silos through transparency and free exchange of information is the idea behind, improving the people aspects sufficient for DevOps. It's not natural. As you probably know, it's more natural to work in your comfort zone on your own in your own little silo. That's true at the individual level. It's true for individual groups, small groups. It's true at the larger group level, and even at the business unit level across corporations. And yet that's really what is important if you're going to be able to make advances across the organization. It really depends on collaboration, smooth flow of information and concepts through the entire pipeline of activities from product conception through to deployment. So the point is that people is a dimension that is serious, and we run into this all the time, where an organization maybe has really good tools or even some good processes, but if the people don't buy into the idea, you're not going to get DevOps. So that's often why people talk about, how important culture and leadership and some of the softer aspects is to DevOps, and that's true in all of the different disciplines. You can look at each of them individually and show how that applies. If you think about the maturity of DevOps, the first way, how can you apply sharing and people aspects to accomplish the first way? A good place to start is to try to foster an environment of truth and empathy, and especially through training like dojos is a good approach to kind of get things and people together. Leadership can drive that. By the time you get to a continuous flow, when you get to a more advanced level at the second way, continuous feedback, it's more about empowerment and rewards to encourage, ongoing sharing and keep the momentum going and provide an environment that will encourage active improvement along the lines of Kaizen and Yokoten. And the third way is true, culture-wide, ongoing best practices sharing, which is truly a Yokoten culture. And again, I'm not going to have time to go through all the details of how to do that, but that's kind of the approach at the 3 levels for people. If we go to the next area, process, the general idea is that you want process to be collaborative, not just the people. If you were to take an example, let's say, maybe the original example where Patrick Dubois, the so-called grandfather of DevOps, was working in a Belgian bank and as a QA consultant, and he had to keep going back and forth between development and ops to get them to agree on the results and to put in place some processes so they could, see each other's work and approve it or agree to it. This is an example of cooperating processes. So in general, all the processes in all of the different discipline areas of DevOps need to be cooperative for things to work, even for the first way. So if you look at continuous flow, the first way, it's really about process engineering to make sure that all the processes are interconnected and sharing and putting in place some metrics that can be monitored. To get to a more advanced level, the workflows need to be very much data-driven to leverage the monitoring metrics and the interconnected workflows that were put in place in the first way. And finally, to get to the third way, the highest level of DevOps, it's all about self-adjusting workflows where the workflows themselves provide enough feedback loops that the processes can learn from each other in effect and make adjustments in a more dynamic way and building on top of the first way and the second way. This slide actually talks about the technology and tools aspects of the dimensions of technology and tools. So fortunately, the challenges associated with DevOps can be assisted with technology, whether it's the application itself and the way it's designed, or the tooling underneath the process to help with the process for development. So, for example, continuous automation tools like Chef Automate can liberate sharing of infrastructure, application, and compliance information. Tools such as Inspect can be used to help with keeping track of compliance information and support both people as well as processes that need to use compliance information during the process of development and delivery. In general, the technology is there to support the first wave. Really, during the first wave, continuous flow, the focus is on automating tool frameworks and tool chains and interconnecting the different tools so that you can have a complete automated flow from conception through to integration and packaging, delivery, and post-delivery support. Whereas once you accomplish the first way, continuous flow, then it's all about continuous feedback. In this case, technology, it's important to apply some reciprocal controls so that any one component in the technology tool chain can actually have some active role in affecting the other tools in the tool chain. So this could be more than just an API, or at least it's not just a one-way API. There's got to be a mechanism where every component can be an active role in the whole tool chain in order to get to the second way level of maturity. And finally, the third way would make use of that for dynamic tuning, where the entire tool chain is able to dynamically adjust according to data and information being provided from from the activities going through the pipeline. This chart may look complex, but it could be a lot more complex. Fundamentally, I was just talking about the maturity curve, the three ways, at the bottom: flow, feedback, and continuous improvement, mapped against the three dimensions of DevOps: people, process, technology. So it's really this reiterating what I had said earlier in the talk, in order to help improve or accomplish the first way. At the people level, you're really looking at building truth, empathy, training through dojos and things of that nature. And at the same time, process engineering, putting in place monitoring metrics and automating frameworks and building tool chains. So an appropriate project to accomplish the first way would really be focusing in on things that will help along that horizontal. Whereas once you accomplish the first way, then you can go to the next level and start working on the people, process, technology aspects for continuous feedback. So empowerment, rewards, making sure workflows are very data driven, putting in place reciprocal controls in the pipeline. And finally, at the improvement level, it's accomplishing a total Yokotin culture where you can share best practices across the organization. Frankly, the same concept applies across the process and tech too, where the tools themselves and the processes are self-adjusting and in effect sharing information across to other tools or processes that are involved in the pipeline. So this, frankly, as complex as it may look, is a simplification because you could apply the same ideas in for each of the disciplines of DevOps. So continuous integration, continuous monitoring, infrastructure, delivery, deployment, security, culture, as well as leadership. So there are all those dimensions and disciplines that you could actually build out an entire matrix for them. And that would be a more complete approach. Nobody said this is easy, and this is why it's useful to have some expertise to help you through the process and make sure that you approach the whole process strategically. In summary, DevOps is certainly not natural, but the results are worth it. They're supernatural results, despite the complexities and challenges. Sharing is a root enabler for DevOps, whether it be sharing across the people or the processes or technology. And this word Yokotin I kind of like because it almost embodies the epitome of sharing, and the concept can be applied across all three dimensions. And finally, automated tooling provides scaffolding. You can think of building scaffolding for DevOps as you go along and make sure it's sustainable and something that everybody and the processes and the technology can use. So fundamentally, that's the talk. I encourage you to learn more if you're interested. There's a blog published on Chef's site. There's a variation on DevOps.com and Trace3's site. Plus, Trace3 has a site for our total DevOps practice. If anybody's interested to learn more, please look at the blog or the site or contact me directly at markhornbeek@trace3.com. Thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it. Any questions?